My name is Bianca Pedrina and I'm an artist from Switzerland, currently on residency in Shanghai. So what I show here is photos I took in the past 1.5 months since I've been here in Shanghai. And since I look at the city through my camera, basically, this is basically like a travel through the time I've been here. And I focus on the small details of a city, what make a city, like the traces of time, the traces of nature and human interaction. And even the very, very small details like dust particles from street dust that will float through the air and come and lie on facades. It started with an exhibition I had in Vienna, in Austria, like 3 years ago. I took photos of the facade where the exhibition space was based in, and I saw it was so dusty and so dirty. And my camera couldn't really capture the really small details, so I decided to take some samples of dust and give them to a laboratory and look at them through a microscope, through an electron scanning microscope in that example. So we could really see what lives on the surface of the city and what really small particles are also part of the city, but we can't really see it with our own eyes. So that's when I changed my camera to the microscope. So I tried to find traces of time inside the city, and dust, of course, is one of them. But also, some layers that just occur over time. Is it either decisions by architects or decisions by people who live in the cities or in the buildings, or just like accidents that happen, which are sometimes very absurd and funny. I particularly like the story of this image. Because when you go around the city, you see traces of stuff, and you never know how did that happen. Where did they come from? And I was lucky enough to see how this happened. So here you see traces of shoes, and a bit more upwards you see traces of an ass, and some, the back of someone. So you must imagine this occurred over a long period of time. The particles and the dust and the dirt came to this wall, and I saw that a security guy was standing there. So it must have been the security guy over a long period of time, resting his body on the wall supporting his body. But the wall is not just a simple wall. It belongs to the American consulate. So it also has, if you know all these things, the picture, of course, suddenly becomes something else. And that's what I like about photography. And in this kind of way, you can also just transport a story if you add some text to it, maybe, or a tour. I applied 3 years ago for this residency, and then something small happened in the meantime. It was like a global pandemic, so it wasn't possible for me to come here. But now I'm really lucky that Po Helvetia, the Swiss culture agency, invited me still. They still wanted me to come, which is really nice. And so I'm spending 3 months in total in China. Part of it Shanghai and Taipei. And it's really interesting for me, for someone who's really interested in cities and the history of cities. Yeah, I learned so much. I was interested in China in general, but Shanghai is being maybe the easiest, first step as a European, because it's very, its history is, of course, very international. And the architecture history is also very European coined. So I like these clashes of cultures, of course. they refined the layers. I was born into a family that was always very social and always, I grew up at openings, art openings, restaurants, and so this sense of community in culture was something I had in the very beginning, and that's what I liked. I liked about art as something to pursue. And since my father worked in architecture, I was also growing up at construction sites. I was always interested in how the world is built, like who decides how the world is built, like who has the authority to do that. So I started to study art when I was 19. Yeah, I think in Bern, in the capital city of Switzerland, and then I went to Frankfurt Städelschule in Germany, and then I went to Paris and all over the world. And now I'm in between Vienna and Basel. Yeah, I guess art is just a way to communicate, huh? So I thought photography is the language that I feel most comfortable with. Because I'm a very visual person, I'm not very verbal person. So I think when we all collectively look at an image, we can all find a common denominator and find a common language as well. So I think the image is something so powerful. So it is a never-ending, treasure box. And you can communicate over cultural differences and different languages. You can always find a similar approach. Yeah, I think it brings people together in a way. So that's why I like photography in general. And in the art context, of course, it's more open and it raises more questions. It doesn't necessarily answer questions, which is interesting. I think. Photography, well, it's basically a part of reality that you take and you pick exactly that fragment of reality and put everything else away. So it's very exclusive. You exclude the world around it and you only include what is in the frame of your camera. And I think that's a very delicate process that, of course, is very fun as well, but it's a way of looking, basically. Yeah, no, often I actually have to go somewhere, but then all these things in the street jump at me and I have to take pictures of them. It's like something I have to do. So yeah, often I don't go out with the purpose of taking photos. It just happens to me, like the pictures find me, I would say. Yeah. Well, I know that many people have the same hypersensitivity like I do. I see everything, which is very annoying. So photography also helps me to filter that or to deal with reality, basically. I guess it's a coping mechanism. And if I can take a picture of something, I can, take it home and understand it later. I don't have to filter everything at once. And I think that's the process. Yeah, looking at the pictures later also is part of the process.